You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Live coverage continues on Hurricane Ida as it continues towards its landfall. Thomas has gone away for a little while, but he did inform me off the air that it is indeed moving at around 14 miles per hour, and so landfall can't be very far away, drawing closer by the hour. Currently, with winds around 155 miles per hour, according to Force 13's analysts. National Hurricane Center have gone with 150 at their update at 9 a.m. with a pressure of 930 millibars. An extremely powerful and dangerous storm. This is, regardless of what happens from here on in, with only 28 miles to clear before landfall. There's not much debate about it that it's going to be a catastrophic landfall, the likes of which haven't really been seen in the eastern part of Louisiana, not least for a very long time. A stronger landfall than Katrina it will be by wind speed, probably not by pressure, and I don't suppose it will be stronger than Katrina in terms of size or surge, but it won't be too far off. And it's going to be a massive threat to all of those communities down in southeastern Louisiana and the New Orleans metro area. My name's Nathan Foy for another hour of coverage. This is Force 13's 27th hour of consecutive live commentary on the storm, which is a record, but meant to be broken, I suppose, on this storm. And we'll be taking your comments and questions throughout when we get a chance. I'm joined in this hour by Isaac, Amethyst, Joey, Jonesy, Orlando, Euxinator, and Walter. Hello to all of you, joining us from all parts of the world once again.
Hello. I quickly want to immediately bring up the point that in the latest frames of radar, it does look like the eyewall is strengthening again.
I am noticing a lot of eyewall lightning, mostly in the southwestern quadrant again. So we'll see if it's another kind of wane in intensity again, or if it's trying to go up again. I don't know.
Well, you can see the radar imagery here curling around, but what is this? Is that potentially a break there in the eyewall on the western side? We'll see with future frames. However, look at this area as well. Some pinks extending down on that southern side where it's all coming from. This is still an extremely powerful eastern part of the eyewall there, extending around to the north. But could that be a little gap there that might get the wheels to fall off of this storm's intensification bid?
Oh, I see. I'm not sure, because I think that gap might immediately get covered up. And remember, the area that the radar is in, it's not really it's still quite a ways from the center, and as you may note, there's a lot of purples in there, and usually areas that purple are prone to error. And I do want to also point out that it does look as though if that eye can cover up that gap, this could be bad.
Here's a longer loop to give you a little idea of where we think it might be heading. It's oscillating a bit at the moment, I think. So it starts around, let me get my pen back. Starts around here, moves along and curves back westwards, west-northwestwards again. That is over the course of how long? Around 2 hours roughly. Now the next 2 hours it could do a few things. It could go that way for another 2 hours, or it could veer back, which I think I would favour in terms of most likely. or least likely it could then jog towards the north. But in 2 hours' time, based on that radar imagery, that's probably what we would expect. Although it doesn't look like it's moving at 14 miles per hour based on that, but Thomas assured me that that was the case. So I don't know, but that's what we're looking at there. And that is the very latest right now on the satellite imagery. Looking around, you can see those red zones just north of Baton Rouge, near Bogalusa, near Wiggins, southwest of Mobile. Some interesting weather there, thunderstorms at the very least, possibly tornadic cells.
Yes, and also there's quite a bit of eyewall, especially within the southern and eastern parts of the eyewall, and as well as I'm seeing a 60 dBz a pixel on in the southern central, southern eastern part of the eyewall.
Yes.
Or southern western. Wait, no. I was mixing my directions, but yeah.
No, I think I see it. Yep, I definitely see it. Let's just get back to that image again. There's that tiny little blue speck down there, which is 60.
Just wanted to quickly mention that we got some good news. We got another reconnaissance plane heading in, a Air Force plane heading into Ida. That's just taken off from San Antonio, Texas.
So more data finding missions on the way from the reconnaissance planes. The time down in Louisiana is a little after 9 a.m. And by midday probably we'll have seen the landfall of this storm. Let's go over to Isaac's screen. You're showing us another view right now. Over there somewhere.
Oh, I didn't.
Yes.
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Yeah, this is from Donaldville, Louisiana.
Although, is it 3 hours out of date? Because that's what the clock says.
No, it's.
That's current.
I think it's just the time is wrong on it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's Donaldsonville, Louisiana, which is just to the southeast of Baton Rouge.
Right, so just north of there's some pretty nasty showers and thunderstorms right now. But even inland here, things look very wet, that's for sure, but rather empty as well, which is good news.
Yep, but also, I am noting now that it looks as though the eyewall, that area, that gap, it could have been a gap, but it looks like it's now just getting taken over by the eyewall itself, although the eye, I believe, is shrinking. But
we'll look at that soon. Looking at Grand Isle right now. Well,
no, it's not.
Things looking very messy there at this point. The trees completely bending over there. It's very hard to really distinguish things. It's pretty unclear, probably because of, I imagine, a constant shield of rain over the lens is causing that. It's not a fluid stream, but you get the idea of what's going on there. Visibility, I imagine, is very low. This is a fisheye camera, and normally you would be able to see the horizon bending around the top of that screen. And obviously you can see nothing, it's just grey. So visibility there looks like it can't be more than maybe a couple hundred meters as you look out to sea there, and it's all white, foamy, and dangerous, the waves coming in. Surge, we believe, is quite serious in the area. We know on those roads that we were looking at earlier, it was engulfing slowly, but it was engulfing the road out of Grand Isle, LA1. And obviously the strong winds will be approaching very soon. In fact, Grand Isle is just about to receive the second innermost part of the storm, basically. Its innermost band outside of the eye wall itself, and it will receive both that and the eye wall in the next 2 or 3 hours. See if we can get a latest position estimate derived by satellite. The current position is 25 miles offshore to the southeast, and obviously it's closing in. I think this hour might be a little bit quieter, at least the first half hour of it. The National Hurricane Center will be updating all of the advisories on 4 tropical cyclones at the end of the hour, so I think will be a hub of activity by then. But I imagine this next 15 minutes is a good time to send in questions, so let's see what we get. B. Miller says, do we think that the Category 5 wind speeds should be put up to 165 or 170 miles per hour, or should we use a completely different system for hurricanes like the central pressure?
Well, sometimes pressure doesn't relate to winds at all. Like you can have a very weak system while the pressure is obviously low, like Typhoon Infa this year.
Yes.
The pressure is at 970s, but the winds are at around category 1 to 2. It's because of the size of the storm. So you cannot just determine everything by pressure. So yeah.
I think a lot here would advocate the use of the CDPS as a scale, as a system for hurricanes.
Well, Devon wants the
Devon
NHC to follow
certainly would.
CDPS.
Alright, let's take some more questions. How worse would this be compared to Katrina? Well, first of all,
I
your
don't know.
statement on it being worse than Katrina in the first place, I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose it would be different by different areas. Would we say that New Orleans won't get hit as hard as Katrina? Or do we think that that's still very much on the cards?
What do you mean?
I suppose it's a difficult question to answer.
Keep in mind, Katrina at this point was weakening from a 175 mile an hour peak. This is at 150 miles per hour. And Katrina was a lot bigger than the storm was too. So you're really comparing 2 completely different storms. Both are still serious though under their own right. Obviously 150 mile an hour winds is nothing to take lightly whatsoever.
Ruman says, where is the current Recon flight?
I think
One
one of
from
the
Texas.
Did we
has
say there's
just,
more than one out there right
passed
now?
through. I think it was the eye. I'm not sure. Let me just
Okay.
check that. Okay, so one of the Air Force Ones is about to, or is currently going to the eastern eye wall. So we're gonna get data from that, and the other few I'm not sure, but we do have another one that is still en route to Hurricane Ida. That is another Air Force reconnaissance aircraft, so we will be continuously getting data from Recon.
Looks like both of them were in the eye wall at the same time. One of them.
They do tend to do that when it gets near the landfall. The question there about 10L, we'll talk about that when the updates come out at the end of the hour. Caleb says, is Category 5 still possible? What do we think now in the team?
Hold up.
I think it's too early, personally. I mean, I could see argument for Category 5, but I think we just have to just wait and see what we get in the end from all the data that we'll get from this hurricane. If there was indeed a high-end Cat 4 or low-end Cat 5.
The new stage stop came in, and the lowest pressure sound was 931 millibars, so maybe it went up by like 2, but it's not a big difference. The FL one's the highest one, down 136 knots. However, the highest SFMR, now that was flagged apparently, which is 144 knots, with the highest unflagged being 107 knots.
I'd just like to add on to the question about Category 5. Even if it did, even if it does reach low end Category 5, there's only a 5 to 10 mile per hour difference between what it is now than what it will be if it does reach Category 5s. And impacts from that stay the exact same, which is catastrophic. So at this point, we aren't really focusing on the exact intensity of the system. We're mainly focusing on impact when it comes to Hurricane Ida and the landfall intensity that is expected.
I'm still trying to figure out how to use my distance tool on the radar imagery. There was a shortcut on my keyboard and I've forgotten it. I'm trying to see if there's a discrepancy between the distance to land on satellite and on radar.
Speaking of radar, it looks like western side is still yet again trying to improve. Still seeing frequent eyewall lightning in the southeastern quadrant.
Oh, I found it. Okay, so radar indicates that the current position of the storm is 27 miles offshore. And I can show this 27 miles to the closest point there, which is near Port Fortune. To Grand Isle up there, that's around 31, 32 miles. And just to get an indication on the eye size, if you take it from the part that goes out the most at the bottom there to the other side, 17.5 miles in length, and in width about 15 miles. So an average size of around 16 miles wide. Very impressive looking storm on radar.
Yeah, and now it looks as though it has closed. The eyewall is closed off again, completely. And it's showing signs of a eyewall replacement cycle as well.
On satellite, the eye, I think, is shrinking a little bit. I'm not too sure. Let's see, there's loads of other questions as well. Let's see what we had earlier. What stage on the CDPS scale is Ida at the moment? From last I heard,
7.
it's still a high-end stage 7.
One of our members, Ethan. Well, actually, I won't say it. Because we can't confirm that it's intensifying again, but it's possible because oh god, there's a lot of lightning strikes now. Than the eye. So he might be right. It might actually be intensifying again, in which case that's really bad.
Lightning around the eye can often be a sign of intensification.
And the eyewall is basically reconnected.
Usually in most cases, eyewall lightning is indicative of at least maintaining its intensity, but usually, like you said, Nathan, it's indicative of a continuing to intensify hurricane. But it's been kind of trying to repair that western side for quite a bit of time now. I wonder if this is going to be the final push to get it axisymmetric. I could speak axisymmetric around itself and get itself more sorted out, or if it's going to keep on doing this where the western side looks good for about 30 minutes and then it goes downhill again.
Oh, I just realized we will be having full advisory at the top of the hour.
Indeed, we are.
Uh,
We'll have lots of
I think the
information to bring.
NHC will still hold the intensity. I guess.
Yeah. And
Nathan, you want to speak there?
Not really.
what?
Go ahead, Euxinator.
I'm just gonna fast forward to the number. Oh yeah, that eyewall's closed off now. Though
We'll see
the
how long it maintains.
western side just looks like it weakened a little bit, but
Well, it has come
Um,
back there in full force.
so could we see it go for one last push? Possibly.
I'm curious to how it's looking at in Grand Isle right now with that camera, because I think they're just about to get out of a tiny little lull before they get into another little rain band there.
I'm not sure it's a little rain band.
Or the band before the Eyewall.
Yep. Grand Isle right now. And this again is a bit clunky by today's standards. A frame a second. It never used to be like that though, did it, Isaac? We had this camera last year.
It's like 20, 25, 30 frames per second, and I guess after Zeta it decided to downgrade the camera. I don't know.
Well, now it's
But
gone completely, so let's go to the webcam on Isaac's screen. Where's this? Oh, there's a few places there.
Baton Rouge, around that general area. I don't know the exact location because I don't know my Louisiana cities too well, but it's apparently from generally around the Baton Rouge area. Just the traffic cameras.
Yep, very wet there. And raining still. But the storm fighting to keep its western eye wall closed, and perhaps it's a battle that it's starting to win, looking very convincing on that last frame.
Yep, we're coming right down to the wire here. If it holds out, it could at least just maintain its intensity by doing that, or if it ends up breaking off again, then hopefully that's a sign of it trying to weaken slightly.
And frankly, like, we're getting mixed messages here. Radar looks like it just closed back its eyewall, but other people are saying eyewall replacement cycle is imminent. But also, I want to mention that
No, not yet.
If it does go for Cat 5, if it is going to hit Cat 5, the time to do it, the last time it could do it would be now. So, before it hits land. Because once it hits land, let's just say the storm is going to probably start weakening quite rapidly.
Once it hits land, it's pretty much going to be a Michael scenario, and we'll see if there was actually a Cat 5 or high-end Cat 4 in post-season analysis by that point.
I mean, Michael, I think, was upgraded to Cat 5 later that day. Or, like, just, like, after landfall.
No, it was 155 operational.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was 155, 919 millibars operational, and then they upped it to 160 in post-season.
Yeah, they did that in April. So again, we're looking at the view from Grand Isle, the only view that we know of that's operational there still at this point. Who knows how long that will be for, considering that let me just try and figure this out in terms of distance. The edge of the eye wall, and this is really where conditions will get...
It is still closed. It still hasn't opened again. So, I don't know what's trying to do. And also, we have a new sound that would probably explain everything.
The edge of the eye wall is now 17 miles from this camera in Grand Isle. Did you have news?
Yeah, new drop sign came in. They found 933 millibars on the surface.
Okay.
which is sort of 932 when you count the winds also.
Alright. What's going on there, Isaac?
What?
There's some slow vehicles in the top left-hand side.
Probably wouldn't surprise me if there was a car accident. I've been hearing a lot of that going on. In fact, that's some emergency management. I can't tell, but
I can see a
there's
light
been,
behind that raindrop. Oh,
yeah, there's been a
looks...
lot of crashes that have been reported in the state due to these evacuations going on,
It's too
and
small to
people
see properly, but I think someone's been spun round.
think so.
So these types of things happen all the time during hurricanes. Sometimes far away from the storm itself, and these can cause a few fatalities sometimes.
Looks like NOAA3 is going back into the eye. Looks like it's going to be either an east to west or a south. I think a southwest to northeast. One of the two.
Regarding the camera, Nathan, yeah, it does look like a little crash happened there. It has the hazard lights on there to the side, so it had a crash going on.
Looking at the radar once again, a storm closing in on a landfall, and if we were to draw some lines to try and extrapolate a landfall area, well, it looks pretty clear to me. If we're drawing it from here, that's where it is right now. Draw an X. That's where it is right now. And generally its movement has been, previously I think it came from round there, and then before that it was over there or something to that effect. I reckon it's probably going to go pretty close to Port Forchon, which is here. Grand Isle up along here, they will probably get the eye wall, or the edge of the eye wall there as it moves through. Golden Meadow as well, they could get some pretty nasty conditions as the eye moves through there. This is just a forecast so far. It could be the case where this storm takes on a life of its own and suddenly moves northwards. Unlikely. Okay, unlikely. What's more likely is a gradual turn, could make a direct landfall in Port Forchon, whichever way it goes.
Also,
Less likely, but still possible, is that it keeps going further west, and then that would mean issues for Homer.
Yeah, people are saying Eyewall replacement cycle, but at the same time, I'm also seeing that the Eyewall itself ended up filling back in. It's now completely reconnected, I would say. No gaps.
Oh yes,
On radar.
Yeah, quite an
absolutely.
improvement.
So it's very confusing what it's doing. But at the same time, it looks like the 70-degree, negative 70-degree cloud tops are starting to now wrap around the rest of the eye.
It's an intensification phase, quite clearly.
Yep.
I don't think it. I think the Eyewall replacement cycle, if it did have one, it's over.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was
If there was.
I think what this happened was just a temporary lull in strengthening because it was trying to probably fix its little western quadrant there. Now that it's fixed, if it stays that way, then it could easily, at the very, very least, maintain its intensity right now. And that's a scary thought to think of. Nathan, I don't know if I want to go to the Grand Isle camera, but I think the waves are now overtopping that little sand dune in front of it.
That started to happen a little while ago for the first time, but you're seeing it again there, what little we can see through. But it does appear on radar that some of the yellows and oranges are starting to reach Grand Isle, so conditions deteriorating a lot here now. There's a wave.
I think that camera's going to be key to showing us what it's going to be like in this hurricane, so I would leave that up for a little bit.
Yeah, you get the idea, even though it's not a fluid stream, you can see the waves crashing in, and with the wind speed, the water is literally flying through the air at possibly 100 miles per hour or whatever. inland.
And this is an impressive video, similar to what we got with. Well, actually, this is probably about on par with what we saw with the Zeta last
Yep.
year in terms of the wave action, and it's only going to get worse from here with this one. So I hope that it was able to survive Zeta, but I'm not too confident it will survive this storm. So we'll see.
So that's the latest view from Grand Isle. Not forgetting that this camera, we don't know much about the location it is, but from those palm trees it must at least be on the second floor, maybe the third floor, looking down at the coast.
If I remember correctly, it was stationed on the second floor, and like on the top of the second floor on a balcony.
You think it's in the same location? It looks like a different location to me.
I think it's just they just tilted the camera further up slightly. I think because before you could see unless it was just due to Zeta alone. Because before we could see all the grass there before Zeta, but maybe due to Zeta the appearance is kind of different now.
I understand now. Yes, that could be true.
Because it's got pretty much the ground zero of Zeta, and it's probably going to get the ground zero of Ida here.
So basically, I saw a question in the chat. That's a really good question. So earlier today, we did post that we are predicting that Force 13 we're predicting a 160 mile per hour landfall. Do we still think this could happen? I think the chances now are very low of that happening. I think it's still possible, but it's extremely unlikely.
160.
Yeah.
Well, keep looking at that eye wall, and that'll tell you that it's not impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever issues was having with its firewall, I think it's done with, and now it's gonna just strengthen a little bit more. We've seen this with Michael before, so it's definitely possible.
Yeah, there's pretty much 40 dBz all around the eyewall except the northwestern tip there on radar from what I'm seeing.
The update is out on Tropical Depression 10, which is the one down there near the bottom that's blowing up some convection over the open Atlantic. Still a depression with 35 mile per hour winds and a pressure of 1008 millibars. Expected to become 65 miles per hour on day 5, so that could make a run at hurricane status, although it will be moving mainly northwards away from any harm in the western part of the Atlantic. That's the first update from the National Hurricane Center out of the 4 storms that will be updated in the next few minutes, so we'll keep you up to date on what happens with all that. And now more visible imagery of Hurricane Ida as it gets very close to connecting with that coastline, the edge of the eye on the satellite picture, although the angle of the satellite is slightly deceiving. You probably want to look more towards the bottom half of the eye as to where the center is.
Just like to make a quick mention that there's been lightning strike in the southwestern quadrant of the Eyewall radar. And keep in mind, that was pretty much the weakest part of the storm for the longest time, at least on radar.
Those cameras once again, and here's the sandwich imagery. The eye looks like it's starting to come out again on satellite 2. Yep, it really is. Latest eye temperature currently 18. Very warm. Convection still blowing up mostly. Let's see if there's new radar frames. Well, that eye's still breaking up just that little bit on the northwest. It's coming and going, but overall I think it's still a strengthening trend.
I agree, because I think that all that's happening right now is, up there, I think that what's happening is it's going to, like if you see there's other the south the fan the convection is starting to really wrap around, so I think that it will eventually just wrap around completely and maybe go for one last round. We'll have to wait and see.
More lightning being detected by radar in the southern quadrant. And I think what's probably going to happen here is you're going to see the lightning rotate around to the western side, rotate around to the northwestern side, and just keep on doing that probably until it really get this its eye fully symmetrical here without any areas where it's open.
Looks as though the I mean it looks like it's made a pass. I'm gonna post this in the discussion. The it looks as though I'm not sure how strong that is. In terms of knots, but I think they just recorded some decently strong knots. Wind flight level.
So it looks like it's below 137 knots there. So a little bit of a relief in terms of that. Let me see if I can get more information. Looks like probably flight level around 130 knots or so, it looks like, on that latest pass. SFMRs are around 125 knots, but they're probably suspect because I see a really sharp increase in the rain rate.
Speaking of rain rate, looks like significant rainfall at New Orleans again. They're getting hit by some more bands, sort of middle bands now, and fairly soon they might get one or two inner bands. Something I've noticed on radar, Isaac, in recent frames is just look at how strong that secondary, it's not a second eye wall, but the second band in is extraordinary on the eastern side, almost as strong as the actual eye wall itself.
Yep, and that's what's over Grand Isle at this moment.
Just about extending there, yeah.
That secondary little feature. Is that camera still up, or is it still? I'd really like to see what it looks like right now with this band over it.
And this, you follow the track of the eye there, it's moving almost west right now.
Looks as though, in the latest frame, in radar, it looks as though the northwestern side of the eye is crumbling.
Yeah, but we said that half an hour ago with the western side. I don't want to play its game anymore.
Yeah. But all the other sides are looking very strong though. So.
Yeah.
So time will find out. It's running out of time if it's trying to get its act together. It's really cutting on getting close to time here. But yeah, it's just been doing this for the most part. Where there's been at least one quadrant of the eye that's been at least somewhat open on radars, or not as strong as the other quadrants of the system. So I haven't a clue if that's going to continue, or if it's going to fix itself and be more symmetrical with time. We'll have to wait and see on that.
You know, looking at infrared or whatever it is, it looks as if the Eyewall got a little bigger, which in the northwestern quadrant. So I mean,
Eye coming out more on visible imagery again. Latest suggests that eye temperature is 19 degrees.
but at the same time, it looks like that open area might be closing back up soon. So.
Do we have any news from Recon right now?
Nothing new. Wait. No, nothing new.
When are we expecting something? Do we know?
Well, we did already get a pass through earlier. I don't know if this was mentioned on stream though, but like it did pass over. It did not find any winds over 137 knots.
All right.
In flight level speed, but I think it was very close to 137. I need to look at it chart to see.
We're expecting full advisories from the National Hurricane Center soon on all 4 systems that are active across the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific. They've already updated Tropical Depression 10 and have kept it at 35 miles per hour and a pressure of 1008. We expect that it will become a tropical storm in probably a day or 2 as it moves out over the open Atlantic. I don't know which one they'll update next. I imagine they would go for Tropical Depression 11, which is located much further north in the Atlantic, and could be a small threat to the Azores. 1 or 2 people suggesting. But we've got no news on anything like that, any of those updates yet. Let's see if we can check in once again with the camera at Grand Isle, as we believe conditions there are pretty poor now. In that secondary eye wall almost, even though it's not. But it may well have the power of one.
Also, I'm hearing that I actually don't want to call it early, but about not a different storm. I believe it was 10 or 10 or 11. I don't remember which one, but apparently we have Julian. So.
Well, we don't know that yet.
It was 11. By the way.
But once we hear the news, we'll let you know whether that is the case or not. But we are waiting to hear from that and from Nora's update, and of course Ida's update, which I'm sure we'll all want to hear from shortly. In the meantime, we're still looking at the waves as they come in Grand Isle with a no small amount of force.
Well, either way, the western eyewall, no force inside, just it's crumbling away.
Let's check the imagery again, the radar imagery. So I think that will come back again though, and probably fairly soon, the way it's been going in recent hours. Update on Nora is out. They have not made any changes to the warnings and no changes to the wind speed either. 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 985 there. Hurricane warnings are still out. Nora is near Mazatlan right now along the coast of southern Sinaloa. Heavy rains and flooding continue across portions of southwestern and west central Mexico. Hurricane warning for San Blas to Altata. Hurricane watch north of Altata to Topolobampo. Tropical storm warning for the same area, and tropical storm watch for Cabo San Lucas to La Paz. We're waiting for 2 more updates from the National Hurricane Center as we wait to hear the fate of Tropical Depression 11 and of course Hurricane Ida, which is in front of us right now at high-end Category 4 status.
I am actually...
Go ahead.
Go on. You can go first.
I think we should take a look back at what the overall look at the storm looks like from afar. I'm gonna have a cool water vapor loop from Go16, just showing how the system's been progressing over the past 3 hours, really trying to clear out that eye right before its landfall. And really we're fortunate to have the technology we have here, and we're able to get. This is CONUS imagery, so we're getting one image every 5 minutes, and then we have mesoscale imagery also that gets one image every minute. So we're really fortunate to be getting data like this, because before this, we'd be lucky if you would get one image every 15 minutes out of the old series of GHOST satellites. So really fortunate to just take a step back and look at just the overall scene of this hurricane. But go ahead.
Very impressive on the water vapor. Still waiting for news from the Hurricane Center. Whilst we wait, let's see if we can get a new position. Just to see how far it is from land now. Roughly 19 miles away from an eventual landfall. So it's taken down maybe 9 miles closer now than it was at the last hour. So the way it's going, we're probably still about 2 hours from landfall, but I struggle to be convinced that this is still moving at 14 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure it's moving much more slowly than that right now.
Yeah, it's taking its time. And this was forecast to happen, where it's gonna slow down. We weren't sure if it was gonna slow down maybe at landfall or before landfall, but it seems to be trying to do it before landfall.
Well, I don't know whether that's good news or not good news. The highest rain cores are staying out to sea for the time being, but the storm will not weaken as fast as it would if it was inland. Indeed, it still may not be weakening at all. I think what the last 2 hours has taught us is not to make any conclusions from one radar or satellite frame, because I'm pretty sure that western yellow patch is going to come back shortly.
Oh yeah, it's just been, like I've been saying, it's just been ebbing and flowing, just improving, then not improving, then improving and not improving. So it's just just kind of irritating to see how it seemingly can't make up its mind whether or not it wants to intensify more, if it wants to kind of weaken a little bit on at least the radar side of things. And I think Grand Isle is probably within the next 10-15 minutes they're going to be in that final lull between rain bands before they get really hammered by that inner eye wall.
Also with us right now we have Tim, who was doing coverage yesterday evening. Welcome back.
Good morning, Nathan. And I actually have something very interesting on my screen if you're able to come over to it. I have a 3D image of Ida over the last 20 or 30 minutes. And you were talking about how the eyewall structure looks. And yeah, you can really see where it's been kind of ebbing and flowing over the last 20 to 30 minutes as it's been approaching the coast of Louisiana. And I actually have been looking at this recently. And you can see on the northwestern side, if this doesn't act up on me, which it is.
Of course it is.
Yes. Because the one time I want to present this and it wanted to act up. All right, let me see if I can get it back here, Nathan. I apologize.
Well, we saw it for a moment there, and we'll see if we can get that back soon. Oh,
Yeah,
there it
because
is again now. Sorry.
Yeah, because this looks really interesting when you go back to the last 30 minutes of it.
Yep, here it is again, the western eye wall building back in once again. And you continue to look at that band on the north of the eye wall, the second innermost part, continuing to wrap around all the way, almost all the way around now. And the more I see that encircling the inner eyewall, the more I wonder whether this might be the beginning of an eyewall replacement cycle after all. But we'll wait and see on that.
It could be, and if it does this right before landfall, then the chances of it really reaching Category 5 are basically nil. Which would be good, obviously, for Louisiana, but Louisiana would still have, and it really doesn't matter if it's Cat 5 or not, because regardless, it's going to bring in life-threatening storm. It's going to bring in life-threatening storm surge, hurricane force winds, major hurricane force winds at that, potential for a few tornadoes.
Update is out on Hurricane Ida. The storm surge warning west of Intracoastal City has been discontinued. That's the only change to the warnings. In terms of winds, they now have it at 150 miles per hour and a pressure of 933, so not much change there either, and I think they've now given up on the storm intensifying much, if any more, before landfall now. So that's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. I will get the public advisory to read out as soon as they publish it. Tropical storm Julian has formed with winds of 50 miles per hour and a pressure of 998 millibars. They're expecting a peak of 65 miles per hour. So a new name on the Atlantic naming list has been scratched off. The top of your screen there is now Tropical Storm Julian, and that is headed out towards the northeast. I imagine in the direction of the Azores, but there are no watches or warnings in effect, so it clearly isn't going to go near those islands. But there it is, a new name storm, which is arguably almost as big news as Ida, but I don't think it takes it, because of course Ida is right off the coast of Louisiana. And the headline from them is the eye of extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Ida nearing the southeastern coast of Louisiana. Catastrophic storm surge and hurricane force winds moving onshore. Let's see what information they had to relay. An elevated NOAA Seaman station at Southwest Pass recently reported a sustained wind of 105 miles per hour and a wind gust of 121. A station in Shell Beach recently reported a sustained wind of 44 and a gust of 52. A NOAA National Ocean Service tide gauge in Shell Beach recently reported a water level of 5.6 feet above mean high water, which is an approximation of inundation in that area. And latest pressure 933 estimated by Recon. I don't think there's been many changes to the surge expectations. They're still expecting 12 to 16 feet in Port Fourchon to the mouth of the Mississippi River, 8 to 12 feet from Morgan City to Port Fourchon, 8 to 12 feet mouth of the Mississippi River to Bay St. Louis, 6 to 9 feet Bay St. Louis to Ocean Springs, 5 to 8 feet Burns Point to Morgan City, 5 to 8 feet on Lake Pontchartrain, 4 to 7 feet Ocean Springs to the Mississippi-Alabama border, 4 to 6 feet for Lake Maurepas, 3 to 5 feet for east of Intracoastal City to Burns Point, including Vermilion Bay, 3 to 5 feet also for the Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border, including Mobile Bay, and then 1 to 3 feet for Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge to Intracoastal City, and for the Alabama-Florida border to the Okaloosa-Walton County line, including Pensacola Bay. 1 to 3 feet for those areas. They're now expecting still 10 to 18 inches of rain, with isolated maximums of 24 possible across southeast Louisiana into far southern Mississippi through Monday. Also, coastal Alabama to the far western Florida Panhandle, 5 to 10 inches with isolated maximums of 15 today through Tuesday morning. Central Mississippi, 4 to 8 inches with isolated maximums of 12 tonight through Monday night. Middle Tennessee Valley, Upper Ohio Valley, Central Appalachians into the Mid-Atlantic, 3 to 6 inches with isolated higher amounts Tuesday into Wednesday. So the rainfall factor is going to be something all the way up the northeast eventually from this hurricane. Continuing coverage of this major hurricane Ida as we go along here. Not too far from landfall, it would appear at this time. We're going to take a break, and then we will be back with the team to discuss all the ins and outs of that National Hurricane Center update, maybe a little bit on the newly formed Tropical Storm Julian as well, just to cover all bases. But that's it for now, just for a few minutes. We'll be back with more coverage and the latest images after this. Live coverage will continue in a moment.